Iran has accused Western leaders of lying about the cause of the Ukrainian plane crash, which took place near Tehran on Wednesday. Both Canada and the UK say intelligence suggests an Iranian missile brought down the passenger plane, killing everyone on board. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he had received intelligence from multiple sources indicating the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. He called for a thorough investigation into the incident and warned Canadians have questions and they deserve answers. Here, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said there was a body of information that the flight was shot down by an Iranian missile. He added it may well have been unintentional. The crash came hours after Iran carried out missile strikes on 2 US air bases in Iraq. But the chief of Iran's civil aviation organization said it was scientifically impossible that a missile hit the Ukrainian plane and that the claims were illogical. An Iranian government spokesman described the reports as psychological warfare. Iran, meanwhile, has invited Boeing, the makers of the aircraft, and relevant government agencies from the United States, Ukraine and Canada to help investigate the crash. Neda Tawfik reports from Toronto.
U.S. media say these images appear to show the moment the Ukrainian airliner was hit by an Iranian missile minutes after takeoff. A small explosion occurs and the jet, now in flames, tries to turn back towards Tehran's airport. But within minutes, the plane's signal is lost and it crashes with 176 people on board. 63 Canadians were among the dead. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the government's preliminary conclusions showed Iran's anti-missile system accidentally shot down the plane.
We have intelligence from multiple sources, including our allies and our own intelligence. The evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. This may well have been unintentional.
Also in Canada, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab addressed the tragedy after Boris Johnson confirmed the death toll now includes 4 British citizens.
The Iranian regime must open up to the international community, including access to the crash site, so we can get the truth as quickly as possible to give the families of the victims an understanding of what happened to their loved ones.
The answers and evidence lie here at the crash site. Iranian officials have ruled out a missile strike, calling the allegations illogical rumors and psychological warfare. Across Canada, more vigils are being held. People here are continuing to bring flowers and candles for the victims. The focus is very much on mourning their lost loved ones. They do want to know what caused this horrific tragedy, but they're happy to wait for an investigation that is full and thorough. Finding the answers they're looking for could take months and even years as the investigation unfolds. Neda Tawfik, BBC News, Toronto.
Let's go now to the Lebanese capital, Beirut, and talk to our correspondent there, Caroline Hawley. Caroline, hello to you. The head of Iran's Civil Aviation Authority, as we were mentioning in the introduction, saying a short while ago that this plane was definitely not hit by a missile. Tell us more about why he's been saying that.
That's right. Look, if it was hit by a missile, obviously this would be highly embarrassing to Iran. Many of those on board were Iranians. But yes, the head of Iran's Civil Aviation Authority, Ali Abedzadeh, has just finished a press conference in which he was very clear. His narrative, one thing is for certain, this plane was not hit by a missile. So Iran sticking to its story, its suggestion that there was a technical malfunction in the face of mounting intelligence. Western officials say otherwise. He also said that an investigation would probably take 1 or 2 years to finish. Iranian state television has been showing pictures of the black boxes. They are believed to be intact. And the Iranian officials said that it would probably take 1 or 2 months to get the information, to get the data from those black boxes. Now, Iran wants to do this investigation itself, but it has invited others to take part. And I think this is going to be very important, how Iran now cooperates with the outside world to find out exactly what did happen to that plane.
So what exactly, Caroline, is Iran saying about access for investigators, given that there are concerns that the crash site has not been properly preserved?
Well, that is key, and that's something that already, as you said, there are concerns about. Investigators, international investigators, should they go there, will want to have proper access to a site that has been preserved. It may be too late for that. Then they will be wanting to know what's in the black boxes as well. So Iran has said that Canada, France, Ukraine can take part in the investigation. Interestingly, the Ukrainians seem to be being more cautious at this stage about what may have caused that terrible air crash.
OK, Caroline, thank you very much. Well, Ukraine's president has asked Western intelligence to provide evidence to support their claims. Let's talk to our correspondent Jonah Fisher in the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. So that intelligence hasn't been shared yet then, Jonah?
Yeah, that's rather surprising that this intelligence has been passed around between the United States, Canada and the United Kingdom, but has not apparently come here to Ukraine. There was a rather, well, to be quite frank, desperate statement put out this morning by President Zelensky in which he basically appealed for those three countries to share their evidence on this with Ukraine. Also in that statement, he referred to what has been coming out of the United States in particular, that it was shot down by a surface-to-air missile. He said that was one of the options still being considered, but that Ukraine did not consider it confirmed at this point. There is a team of Ukrainian officials and investigators in Tehran at the moment, and that may be the reason why Ukraine is being quite cautious in what it says. It is hoping that those investigators, some of them with experience of the MH17 crash in 2014, which was similar in some ways in that it was brought down by a Russian-built missile. Some of those experts are part of the Ukrainian team that are now in Tehran, seeking to get access to both the crash site and key pieces of evidence.
Well, let's pick up on that, because you say they are still seeking to get access to the crash site. Why haven't they been able to go there? And what are you hearing about the preservation of the site? I mentioned to Caroline a moment ago that there are concerns that it hasn't been properly preserved.
Well, very little information has come from this Ukrainian team that is in Tehran at the moment. We haven't heard definitively one way or the other whether they have been able to get what they want in terms of accessing the site. There seems to be something of a media blackout being put in place surrounding what they're doing, perhaps because they don't want to upset the Iranians. We know they've had various consultations with the Iranian investigators, but at this point in time, how successful they've been, well, that is not clear. And I think Ukraine is hoping that by being patient, not jumping to any conclusions, it might enable its investigators to get better access inside Iran.
OK, Jonah, thank you very much. Jonah Fisher there in Kiev. Just in the last few seconds, we're seeing the Foreign and Commonwealth Office change its advice for travel to Iran, saying it is advising against all travel to the country. And additionally, the FCO is advising against all air travel to, from and within Iran. It says if you're in Iran, you should review your departure options and consider leaving the country. Well, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has confirmed 4 Britons died in the plane crash, up from earlier reports of 3. The 3 known British victims include engineer Sam Zakei, a BP employee from Surrey, Zaid Tamabesi, an engineer from West London, and Mohammad Reza Kakoda Zadeh from near Brighton. It has also emerged that a British teenager, named in some reports as 17-year-old Arad Zere, who lived in Canada, was among the victims. And I'm joined now in the studio by Michael Stevens, Research Fellow for Middle East Studies at RUSI, the think tank on international defence and security. Michael, morning to you. Thanks for coming along to talk to us about this story, which is incredibly complex. And we have these 2 narratives, the Iranian Civil Aviation Authority saying this morning that there was no way this plane was hit by a missile, but Western intelligence sources saying that it's entirely possible this was the case. What's your reading of what's going on?
So I've spent a lot of time talking to my contacts in Canada and the United States and some in Britain. And what appeared to be happening over yesterday and the course of yesterday's events was that it became more and more clear that this was not what it seemed to be, and that this looked to me like a shoot down of the plane, although it was, and I think everybody is stressing that if that is 100% confirmed, that it was accidental. And I think one of the things that's happened is that the initial leaks of information coming out of the Department of Defense in the United States have been very, very clear to say it's accidental. We're not going to escalate as a result of this. The same is being said in Canada, and I think Prime Minister Trudeau made it very, very clear that if this was the case, as it looks increasingly likely, that that was not something that they would then use against Iran. They would not use this to escalate tensions and to create further problems in a scenario which is already looking pretty unstable.
Yet we're hearing the head of the Civil Aviation Authority say it was scientifically impossible, was the quote, for a missile to hit the Ukrainian plane. Why do you think the Iranians are insisting on this stance rather than even presenting a more open-minded stance at this stage?
Sure. Well, I mean, it can be scientifically impossible, and that's absolutely true, given the technology which exists today, how you are able to identify civilian aircraft versus military aircraft, but it's humanly possible. Human error creeps in, and that is the problem here. And I think that the Iranians, if they are going to admit guilt, will have to admit that there was human error in the process. And then we have to look at chains of command, and I don't think the Iranians are in a place right now where they would want to do that. So let's see what happens. There is obviously an investigation taking place, but I'm afraid to say that the weight of evidence is proving that the Iranian version of events doesn't look to be correct. And they will have to deal with that in due course. Now, the fact is this, is that Western states are not putting the Iranians on the block here. They want to cooperate, and they want cooperation from the Iranians. It looks like they might get it. And in that respect, I don't think that the Iranians are going to be backed into a corner. So it would be better for them if they come out and they say the truth. Now,
you think in their own time they will do that?
I have no idea. We're dealing with the Middle East, and sometimes these things might take a bit of time, if at all. And if we look at the last time that a plane was brought down over Ukraine, I feel very sorry for the Ukrainians now. This is the second incident in 5 years. That, look, disinformation is part of the game. It's just what happens, and we're going to have to accept that. And
is this why, do you think, that the international investigators, both those who are in the country and those who have not arrived yet, have not been allowed the sort of access to the crash site that they want to get? Yeah, and they need to get full access to the crash site, and there needs to be no evidence of any tampering or anything of that nature. Let's hope that the Iranians are more cooperative. They've said that they will cooperate now, and that is a good sign. It's a positive step, and then we will wait down the line to see what the reports reveal. But I'm afraid to say that the initial reports coming from the Americans, and the Americans are the only country on earth that would have the signals and satellite capability to work this out, don't look very good. OK, Michael Stevens from RUSI, thank you very much.